I'm Suzanne Yvette, and this is Alternate Perspective. This show is about shining a light on all things alternative and community-driven by providing a platform for different perspectives. Today we're talking about being Bloodwise with Ken Baxter.
I'm Ken Baxter. I wasn't nervous till the camera started rolling.
That happened.
Anyway, I'm Ken Baxter. I'm 52 years old, grandfather, community activist. Have been a community activist for a long time. Mm-hmm. Being Bloodwise is something that's very important to me. And I think it should be important to everybody. Because being Bloodwise is understanding that the blood industry, blood that most people think is just like a nonprofit organization collecting blood and helping people out, but the blood's a little more complicated than that. It's actually a business. So being Bloodwise for me is understanding the business of blood and sharing that with other people. I'm more of a messenger than an expert. I've always followed the experts and been inspired by people that do research and that are very passionate about things that they've seen. Blood has affected me because I'm a person who used blood products from the time I was 4 months old. A hemophiliac, a bleeder. Most people think of hemophilia, they think that those are the guys that when you cut yourself, you bleed to death. But it's much more complicated than that. We have platelets that work fine. And there's different kinds of hemophiliacs. It can get real complicated in description, but it boils down to there was 20,000 people in this country, including me, that had to use blood products made from blood. At one time, it was plasma, frozen plasma, and it took forever to get it into your body.
Wow. And
then they turned it into a concentrate, a powder. So along the lines, this is all Business of Blood provided us our products in very big pharmaceutical companies.
All right.
And so they provided us with a product that got more expensive as the more concentrated and better it got. And so our treatment got better.
Okay.
Now, we suffered from a lot of internal bleeding, which has destroyed all my joints. It's been very painful. A lot of time in the hospital as a kid. It had a very negative effect on different areas of my life. But I really depended on the ability to use blood. And that resource that I think everybody is going to use at one time or another has really affected me and thousands of other Americans in a variety of ways.
Well, you did describe blood products because, to me, the first time I ever heard, all the blood donations and everything called as blood products was from you. So I was I'm glad you explained that. And I'm guessing most blood donors are not aware of this, so I think it's a very important part for people who are donating blood to know what they're getting involved in as well. Yeah,
a lot of blood donors, they don't realize the different aspects of what blood could be made into. It can go to the emergency room and help save somebody's life, or it could be turned into 50 different products used by pharmaceutical companies to treat different things, which the profit margins can be very high.
Wow.
So there's a lot of money to be made in blood, and I don't think people think about that. They think of it as I used to think of it as like a nonprofit. People helping people.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
This is new to me.
It's a huge business. And not only that, it's a business that when it began, they had an issue with hepatitis. And they knew it was in the blood supply. It would have cost a lot of money to prevent people from getting hepatitis. And there wasn't a lot of effort in spending that money to prevent that. And so because it's such a big business and the profits are so big, one of the, how can I put it, profit becomes important. Sometimes profit becomes more important than the consumer.
That's not good.
Yeah. So, me being a community, I said I was a community activist. What happened is when I was in my early 20s, I started doing volunteer work. at camps and involved with other people that had bleeding disorders because I wanted to connect with the community where we had similar issues. And what happened is I started seeing people getting really sick. And about that, actually before that, I was 19 years old when I went to a doctor and they told me I was HIV positive for the blood products.
Wow.
And at that time they told me that I probably had been exposed to dead virus. And it wasn't really explained well to me what had happened. I just, and because I had a very bad attitude at that age, and so it didn't really bother me. I was semi-suicidal, so I thought, all right, so I don't have to kill myself. I'll just deal with this, or I'll ignore it, which I did both. But what I couldn't ignore is the volunteer work I was doing in the community, and I was seeing kids get sick and die of the same thing I had, that for some reason I'm a slow progressor. I've had HIV for over 30 years. I didn't start taking any medication until 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So, and I got it from a product that I was told was safe. Come to find out, it wasn't safe, obviously, but I just was volunteering and I was taking pictures at camp. And then, we all found out we were HIV positive. And then I watched kids die of pneumonia, and I saw people, using very expensive medications, medications that were making people sick. My volunteer work turned into a job where I was actually delivering some of the products that I was using. So I got really connected to a lot of people and kids that had HIV from blood products. And it just had a huge effect on me. I just really felt their pain. And in particular, this one kid, his name was Rocky Alvarez. He was 10 years old, and I spent a lot of time with him for one reason or another. His parents couldn't be there for him in the hospital. His life was AIDS. That's all he knew. He didn't even know he was HIV positive until right before he died, because nobody wanted to tell him. He thought that all this time in the hospital being sick was part of being a bleeder. And so, the business of blood had a huge effect on his life. It turned it into living in a hospital. So watching him suffer and then being with him when he died, one of the hardest aspects of that was huge impression on me, because he went through days of not being able to breathe and just not hardly moving, and all of a sudden he wanted to get out of bed and he was actually dying. His oxygen level was going down, and we had to hold him in bed, and just that whole process, seeing that, and then seeing other kids at camp, kids that didn't come back, and then watching other adults die, and then feeling a bit guilty myself, living through all this and being a survivor. I also became a father, which was not something that everybody did, and it was, it was crazy. In 1990, I had twin daughters that were born. It was a long 9 months, and I was so lucky that they weren't HIV positive. So they probably kept me going in ways that other things might not have. My dedication to them really, I think, gave me a spark of life. So community activism, as a father, seeing kids die, it was really tough. And along the way, I kept hearing about there might be an issue with there might be more to it than we were told. It was an accident, that the products were bad by accident, that there was nothing they could do. There was no way to identify that there was AIDS in the products that were being made. I had no idea what the pressures were in the background. We had a watchdog group called, it was like a nonprofit fellowship organization that watches out for us as people that deal with blood products. And I didn't know that they were being pressured by pharmaceutical companies not to tell people not to use products. Wow. Instead, our watchdog group kept saying, keep using the products. There might be some issues, but keep using the products. And there was a couple of years where they should have been saying, stop. It should have been like, Tylenol poisoning years ago, or any other bad product. Tylenol poisoning. Yeah, there was a time where Tylenol had somebody had put arsenic or something in it, and they recalled all the Tylenol. They should have recalled all these products. Instead, we found out through research I'm not the one that did the research. I just passed the information. I'm the messenger. And
Well,
found out through research that there was, 4 companies involved. They were making so much money that they didn't want to take the loss of their profits. They figured out it would cost them less in lawsuits than it would to throw the product away. And then when they couldn't legally sell it in the U.S., they sent it to other countries. And they actually sent it to camps with kids. And they knew the product was bad. So these are the kind of stories that I accumulated over the years from very educated and intelligent people that did research and were very angry.
well, I don't blame them for being angry. These
Yeah.
are children, people, lives, but because of profit, they didn't care.
It's hard to believe, and so that's where it goes back to the being Bloodwise. If I had been Bloodwise, if I understood the industry, which some of the people in the community did, they understood the pressures and the profit issues. They actually stopped using the products. There was just a small number of people that did that, and they managed to not get HIV.
But still, it's like people, it's, oh my God, I have no for words. I'm just authentically pissed.
It's hard to believe. So many people don't know these stories. There's so many families that not only did they go through the process of dealing with the hemophilia, bleeding internally that destroys your body in a lot of ways, and it makes life really hard. But to throw AIDS on top of that, and then a bunch of guys having to deal with AIDS, the stigma was just, took on a life of its own. People had their houses burnt down. People went through all kinds of things. They continue to go through things. There's still people that professionally, they will not talk about being HIV positive. I've been talking about it since 1988 because I got angry at watching everybody dying quietly. Yeah. I thought, you know what, I got nothing to lose. I'm kind of semi-suicidal about things. There was a time where I was able to see my kids all the time, and we had a breakup. And so when I wasn't able to be with my children, and was frustrated with life, what did I choose to do? I went to be a community activist, and I took all my energy and I put it into that. All right, I may not be able to be with my kids every day, so I'm going to go be a community activist. And I went pretty far with that, because what happened was, other people motivated me, other people that understood the business of blood. And they provided the documents and they did the research, were telling me that these companies need to be held responsible.
They should be.
The business of blood needs to be held responsible. So there's some great hard lessons to learn from all this, that anybody facing the future of needing to use, we could need blood for anything from elective surgery to an emergency. If it's life and death and you're in the ER, great. Use whatever they got. You don't have anything to lose. But otherwise, wouldn't it be nice to know all the facts?
Well,
to know that blood is considered a service, not a product. And that has made it very tough. That was blood. Do people need to know that blood shield laws exist, and every state has different blood shield laws. That's another aspect of the business of blood. These blood shield laws were developed long before the big pharmaceutical companies started making millions of dollars on these products. The product that I use right now, it's not made of blood anymore. They stopped making our products made from blood. So I'm still talking about blood, even though it doesn't affect me anymore.
Well, it's good that you got yourself out of the situation.
Because it's still an issue that affects every person that needs blood in the future. The business really needs a closer look. It needs attention. And nobody wants to talk. In the hemophilia community, in the early days, the early 90s, everybody was upset. They were throwing blood on doctors because we found out that our watchdog group wasn't doing their job. The FDA wasn't doing its job. Everybody was very angry. I was busy breaking up with my daughter's mom and losing everything. So I really didn't care about any of it. And what happened is I got pulled back in. I kept having buddies that were dying, and I'd go by their bedsides or I'd go to their funeral. And they wouldn't, no, the family wouldn't have any money to bury them. And so I would go hit up the local news station and beg them, sell it like, if someone was selling it like a shoe, they used to drive me nuts. Sell it like a shoe. Go to the news station and say, look, these people can't afford to pay for a funeral. And you know why? And don't you think that's important? Shouldn't this story be told?
It should
I shouldn't
be.
have to sell it. You should sell it itself. I should just have to mention that it even happened. And so
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of that, just out of just my heart going out towards other people. And some survivor's guilt. You know, I walk with a lot of survivor's guilt.
Yeah, that's,
I don't know why I survived all this. You know, there's so many smarter, better people than me that didn't make it.
Ken, you're a pretty fantastic person. I know
So-
that. I know you for years.
That's the truth. That's how I feel about it. And I have been compelled since 1992 to talk about these issues. I stopped. Oh, and then it developed into something else. I was talking about the issues at first, raising money for funerals, and then I thought, maybe I could take another step. Then these guys were showing up at. They invited me to a candlelight vigil, and they were going to Bayer Pharmaceuticals. I don't even know if I should mention the name. But they were going to this huge big pharma, and they were showing their pain. They were talking about there needs to be a settlement. There needs to be an investigation. And I went with them. I thought, well, you know, I didn't know that one company was worse than the others, and I wasn't quite convinced that it wasn't just an accident. But I figured I'd go pay my respects to the suffering. But as I saw these documents and I talked to these guys that were a lot smarter than me, I became convinced. And so when we went to the gates of one of these pharmaceutical companies, and everybody was very upset, and I started thinking about all the people that I knew that died, the people that I sat with that died, and especially that 10-year-old boy. I got very angry, and I thought, how can I express this in a way? You know, I was watching people hand out flyers at this huge compound, and I thought, you know, we're disappearing in the background. People are ignoring us. They're not really, we're not getting the effect. They're not living, they're not experiencing the pain that I saw. Yeah. How do we get that across? You know, people do it all, how do we become a commercial? You know, every day there's commercials on the TV telling us what products to like and how to get fired up about these stupid products or teams or whatever. They're getting fired up about things that don't compare to the people I watched die and the suffering that I've seen and the elements of the business of blood that people need to pay attention to. So I thought, well, we could do better. So I started getting really loud. And everybody looked at me, you know. Other people had been really loud and aggressive up until that point, and they were starting to back off. The doctors weren't getting blood thrown on them anymore. People weren't breaking things. They were getting more conservative, and I was just coming into it. So I was pretty fired up. And so I didn't want to throw blood on people. I didn't want to get aggressive, but I wanted to create a presence. Just like I created a presence at the bedside of those people that were dying. I wanted to create a presence, the same presence I felt after I watched somebody die at the gates of these pharmaceutical companies. So I went a little further than everybody else. There wasn't a big crowd. It was like 40 or 50 people, but then there was a core group of us, about 10 people that kept showing up for about a year. So I kept thinking, what else can I come up with? You know, I'll put flyers on everything. I'll stick it to anything. And one, you know, they always were. We might get a ticket for littering. You might get a ticket for that. You might get in trouble for this or that. Can't stop it. And I go, no, we got to go a little further. So then I painted my face red. Then I started decorating the driveway with the paint of blood all over the driveway. It was water finger paint, so you couldn't get charged with anything. So I was always trying to figure out how I could walk that line. Then I developed my voice where I can get it up to 100 decibels so it echoed through the whole place, and I didn't need amplified sound. And then I started getting buttons of the dead, and I would put it on me. I got a suit, and I started dressing like an executive, you know, and with a red face, and I just wanted to create that 30-second commercial that they couldn't drive on that compound without wondering what the hell we're doing. And see, I would be the attention getter. I would be like, all right, red-faced, yelling with a death mask on my back and just like, rah! But I don't yell at people. I just like a town crier. And then my buddy over there that's dying of AIDS, he's just dressed simply, very quiet, intelligent man. Yeah, you want to know what the crazy guy's doing here? take some information, and it worked great.
Wow.
And then the guys started getting tired of going out there, and and then they ended up dying. There wasn't, and well, I kept going, and I bought an ambulance, and I painted it red, and I put the pictures of before and pictures of people that would protested with me that were healthy and when they were sick and when they were dead. I took those pictures because I'm a photographer.
Yeah, I've seen
So
your
I
work.
sent it. I used my skills to record my buddies after they died because I wanted the people at that plant to see what I saw. That this is important. This is the hard lessons of the business of blood,
Yeah.
and somebody should care about this. It should be a worldwide attention should be on this, so that this doesn't happen again. And I created an ambulance. I put big stickers on it. It looked like it was so good. I did such a good job that people thought it was an ambulance. It was a big red ambulance, and most people thought it was just a regular ambulance.
That's great.
I was so frustrated. And then I'd show up at the plant. The hard part was their employees knew what it was. And I got to know a lot of people. And I would go and I would stand outside the gates of that company for 8 hours at a time. And in huge amounts. I'm in pain all the time because my joints are all messed up. Huge amounts of pain, but I wouldn't sit down. And then I did amplified sound with the ambulance. The lights were going the whole time. I created a presence for 8 hours because I wanted them to go through a full shift, to see that I was dedicated, that I'm going to put in a full shift right with you. And you're going to think about my buddies when you leave and when you show up. And some people would come out there, they would get just so frustrated because I'm also using my voice. So you can't tell exactly, it's such a big compound, you can't tell what I'm saying, but you know what I'm saying because I've been saying it for every Wednesday for 6 years. I kept showing up, and it got to the point they called the police every time, and it got to the point where it was just me. And so when my friends died, I bought skeletons. So I bought 70 plastic skeletons, and I painted them red. Then I'd decorate the driveway with red paint, and I would do my routine. That's what I did on Wednesdays. And so, as a matter of fact, the police department was so used to they would come and talk to me when they would block the driveway because they were so sick of being called out for one protester. They made it inconvenient for the company by blocking their driveway, and we'd sit there and talk sports or whatever, and they would laugh. Yeah, they're going to make us come out here. We're going to make it inconvenient for them. And they were so used to me coming out there that they thought I was going to come out there on Christmas Eve. Because I think it was a Wednesday, and they brought stuffed animals for my kids. Because we had talked about my kids. So that's what a routine I created, and then there was a lot of employees. So what would happen is I'm the town crier, doing my whole routine, honoring my buddies and the kids that I watched die, and using my voice to fill the whole neighborhood with this sound. And so when people get within about 20 feet of me, then I would completely shut it off, and I'd say, "Hey, have a good day. How you doing?" I wouldn't talk about what I was there for. It was obvious. I had a flyer in my hand the whole time. If you wanted more information, here you go. You want more information? That was the whole thing. Hey, you want to know what I'm doing? There you go. Here's the information. Take some information. I don't really need to go into it further than that. The information is right here. You can go to the webpage and check it out. And then, so, they had a lot of conversations with people because they realized that once they got close to me, then it was just a casual conversation. I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. And that would ease them a little bit. But then there was people that would go, I also had candles on the ground. They'd kick my candles and they'd threaten me and they'd say, I wish you were dead. You should go get a job. I wish you and your buddies are all dead. And those were the hard days. It was so hard not to become violent when you knew that you were representing people you loved, and these people were laughing at you, they were making fun of you, and they were antagonizing you because they were so sick of me showing up. And they couldn't believe that legally I could do that because I didn't yell when the police were there. They were there for about an hour and they'd leave, and I would act completely different when they were there. I'd wait till they leave, and then I'd get a little more loud and expressive. But there was, at the same time, I had people get real aggressive with me, and then they would feel bad and come back and apologize. There was a time where we were demonstrating against the this company's lawyer in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco. And downtown San Francisco was great because you could use the buildings to echo your voice. I remember one guy came down one time, and I was just saying, you know, it was the lawyers of the company. We were saying these lawyers represent a company that's hurt a lot of people, and you need to be aware of it. And we were passing out information. Of course, I was the face, you know, what is this crazy guy doing? And then you had the quiet guys handing out the flyer. Yeah, you want to know what the crazy guy's doing? Here you go. Here's some information.
That's a great strategy.
There's a lot of people hurting, you know, you didn't know about it. And so then one guy came down and kicked over my candles and threatened me and everything. And he goes, I can hear you from the 13th floor. You're driving me nuts. Because I'd be there all day. And then I just go, yes, sir, just don't touch me, sir. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, just don't touch me, sir. Yes, sir, yes, sir. Whatever he said, yes, sir. And then I'd set my candle up. He'd kick it over, I'd set it up, he'd kick it over, I'd go, yes, sir, and just don't touch me, sir. So it was comical. But you know, I was so dedicated to representing the people that I cared about a certain way.
Yeah.
He came back down and apologized and took some information. And that was quite an experience for me, a learning experience. And so I did that protesting for 10 years.
Did anyone like try to help you make it more public, or did you try to communicate with like important figures? You know,
it was so simple for me. I did it. I not only went and protested out in front of the farmers. I picked one company. And I asked the people in the bleeding disorder community to pick that same company. Let's just pick one company and boycott them to make a point that we have consumer power. The products I use right now are $30,000 a month for me to keep from bleeding. I use IV, $30,000 a month. So there's a lot of money being made by these companies, and we had a lot of consumer power. And I would go to these conventions and I would say, let's show our power. And I wouldn't tell people they had to do it, but I would do the same thing at conventions, because these companies would come in and put a happy face at these conventions. So I would pay the $100, $200 to go to this convention, and I would have a doctor's uniform that says bear=death.com or something like that, presenting the other side. And then if somebody, and I never really talked about what I was doing unless somebody really asked specific questions, I would just create a presence and have a little red card. We'll go to the webpage. There you go. Go to the webpage. And I would go to their booth where they spent $50,000 to advertise a very positive message. Let's forget about all the people that died and just pretend like everything's okay. Yeah. And I would say, well, let's maybe present the other side of that. Maybe it's not okay, and maybe you should remember the people that died and honor them by not letting this happen again, and really talking about the fact that it happened to begin with. So, but I knew I couldn't be aggressive. You know, I couldn't run in there with a sign going, you're terrible, or throw blood on people like people were doing at one point. Well, my first year at a national convention was right back to back with people being very aggressive. The previous year, people were very aggressive. So I came along in '97 and I went to a national convention. This one company had spent $50,000 to be the biggest sponsor there. They had a booth. I was dressed in black with red face paint and a mask on the back of my head that said that they don't care, and had my information. And I didn't really say much. I would just create the presence, and if you want information, I'll give it to you. So
I just want to this whole situation, this happened in what year? Like this
is 97.
97.
I started protesting with a group of people in 96. Then I went to my first national convention. It was my second national convention where everybody, all the companies in this that handle these blood products in this community would all meet in one spot. And the watchdog group, the foundations would all meet, and they'd have a big convention, talk about treatment, talk about what products are available. So it was like a big trade show.
Oh, okay, wow.
So at this trade show, they weren't talking about death anymore. They weren't talking about the people that died. They were wanting to get past it. And
so this situation, what happened to your community and everything, this is a recent thing. It hasn't been that many years, like for historically wise, it's very recent in historical sense.
To some people, it's recent. To some people, even people in the community that I come from, because we don't use blood products anymore. There's a whole generation that haven't used blood products. So they're like, don't talk about that. We don't want to talk about that. And the pharmaceutical companies that are still run these circles, that's in the past. Get over it. Get over it.
How can you get over
You
that?
don't-
There's like a whole...
You don't get over something like that,
No.
especially when people tried to. There was settlements.
There was settlements.
There was settlements.
But let me guess, not enough.
But they weren't. Nobody got free medical care.
No.
Nobody was offered free medical care.
Or,
People were demonized.
wow.
People that went to court, they wanted to go anonymously, especially back then. You get your house burnt down for being HIV positive.
Wow.
So they wanted to go to court anonymously, and some of these companies would get their name out there so that they would embarrass the heck out of them so they wouldn't go to court.
That's so
and then
messed up.
when I actually went to a federal courthouse one time to demonstrate to support a family. They had lost their son, and they were asking for $40 million. So I did my routine out in front of the courthouse, got my red face paint, and I'm walking back and forth, and just kind of walking the line. This is in Louisiana, and I knew that, in New Orleans the cops can be a little aggressive, so I was watching my P's and Q's, and so doing my routine, and I thought, you know what, this jury. I don't want to influence the jury, but I want to influence the people in the community. And I thought, I wonder how close I can get to the actual trial. And I walked into the court. They let me in the courthouse. I couldn't believe they let me in the courthouse wearing a black outfit, red face paint with pictures of people that died on me. I went through the courthouse and got to next to where they were holding the trial. And this is, again, this is another side of the business of blood. This family was asking for $40 million for the death of their son because they could prove that it shouldn't have happened, or they believe that this is product liability issue. I didn't know the jury was in the hallway. So I walked right by it's a federal crime to influence a jury. And everything, I was all about influence. Walking up, and the jury was in the hallway for some reason. I had no idea. So this judge says, Mr. Baxter and the security, Mr. Baxter, step into the judge's chambers. I thought I was going to jail. He goes, he's a southern drawl. He goes, well, Mr. Baxter, it's a federal crime to influence the jury. I go, no, sure, no, that's not what I was trying to do. I had no idea the jury's going to be in the hallway. I wouldn't never try to influence the jury. That's not what I was trying to do. Sir, please, don't. I'll go away right now. And he goes, that's okay. He's putting his robe on because I don't know what there's some break or something. And I understood later why he wasn't upset. He knew that the jury was going to award this, that they were going to get that $40 million, which was a number I was asking for because I figured I would never get it. That would be just a number that it would mean something if it happened, but they would never give us that much money. This family got that.
Wow.
They got the $40 million, but it was overturned.
It was overturned?
And that's why I didn't go to jail that day, because the judge knew that the statute of limitations by one day was going to keep that family from getting reimbursed for their son's death.
Oh my God.
Because what happened was, as soon as you find out you're HIV positive, you had 1 year to the day to sue. And they supposedly missed that one day, which I don't know what the details were. It was just outrageous, but I just figured that's probably why I didn't go to jail that day. So that was one. I did go traveling to other parts of the country to honor families that were dealing with this stuff. I went to settlement conferences. There was a big class action suit, and it was asking basically for $100,000 from all the manufacturers. I didn't even know I could opt out. All of a sudden, I was never like the guy that came up with the idea. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Let me see if I can expand on that. That was, so I'm not original. I'm just more aggressive in certain ways. So there was a couple of people in the community that had opted out of this big settlement that they said we'd never get. And again, this is part of the history of the business of blood. This is the hard lessons of the business of blood that people could learn from so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
But there's no platform for that. Not right now.
Not even right now after so many years.
So this settlement conference, this settlement, I opted out of. I found there was a couple of people that were opting out. And matter of fact, the whole community, because the basic word was by this one judge that was saying you have to write this judge to opt out of this national class action suit. And if you don't write him, you're opted in automatically.
Wow.
And then it got to the point where they were saying you can't opt out. If you opt out, people aren't going to get money. There was all these confusing messages from people in the community, from the doctors that were telling you what you should or shouldn't do, people that were suggesting a lot of influences. And I knew that there was 2 people opting out, and people were mad at them. They were giving them death threats. And I go, oh man, I'm into that. I'm opting out right now. Damn, come on, yell at me, threaten me. Give me a reason to get involved in that.
Oh man, I love you.
So I opted out. I didn't get nobody. I even put my number online and everything because they were threatening a friend of mine. So I'm like, let me get in the way. Come on, threaten me. And nobody threatened me. So I did. Go ahead.
So my question with the settlement, was that another attempt to kind of try to put it under the rug, essentially?
It was, they were only offering $100,000, and then they were saying that you could never sue again ever over anything.
Okay, so it was an attempt
so there
to
was
put
no
it
medical
under the
care
rug.
there. Yeah, it was a pittance. So
Yeah.
it was nothing.
So it was just something to
trying
get
to sweep it under the rug. So I said no to that, which was really hard because I had small children. And everybody else was taking the money. They would say that no other settlement would ever happen. I was hearing it from my doctor and the social workers at hemophilia bleeding disorder. This particular group that deals with the business of blood has a treatment team. And we were hearing from the treatment team that this is what we should do. These influences from
But were
everywhere.
the treatment team also kind of influenced
their,
by the...
Their influence, yeah. See,
So-
I didn't know. I learned when I was delivering pharmaceutical drugs about some of the dynamics with doctors and pharmaceutical companies. It may have changed since I was involved, but I did the same thing. I took the pastries to the office and I said, "Hey, look, let's go to lunch. We'll sit and talk." I wasn't able to offer them a donation to their favorite charity, like some pharmaceutical companies can. Hey, if you get 30 people on this product, this new product that we have, we'll donate to your favorite charity, which could be anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
They may even have their own foundation. Who knows?
I think you posted a video where they talked about one of the doctors who mentioned that situation, that like the reason he wouldn't even tell his patients was because they put him in that not awkward position, but in that position where he has to choose his charity or his greed essentially more, or the life of a person.
Well, that's kind of what happened to our watchdog group, the National Hemophilia Foundation. Our watchdog group, sitting in the middle of the business of blood. They were supposed to watch out for us and let us, protect us, no matter what. And what happened is they ran out of money. They had some serious financial issues, and then they had to restructure the national organization. And a lot of that restructuring money came from pharmaceutical companies. And there's rumors now that these nonprofits are 70% funded by these pharmaceutical companies. So, and they try to say there's no influence. So why weren't people warned? There was a 2-year period where our watchdog group was saying, keep using the products. It may have AIDS, but keep using them because it's saving your life. We had options. We had options. A lot of people didn't know their options. There was a very small percentage of the community, out of 20,000 Americans, that knew that they can go use whole blood again if they had to. They can go use plasma. There were other options. They didn't have to use this product that pooled thousands of donors together. All it took is one donor in that 20,000 donors that you're going to be exposed to when you use your medication. One person with AIDS, and then everybody gets exposed to it. And they weren't telling you. They were saying, well, we're only collecting so much at a time. We're only vatting so many donors. they said a low number when it was like 4 times as many. So there was a lot of misinformation, you know. Back to the business of blood settlements.
The settlements?
I opted out. I felt guilty. I felt bad. I felt elated too, because it was kind of like a fight. Well, like, come on.
Ken's rebellion.
Yeah, my semi-suicidal attitude. You know, go ahead, threaten me. I'll opt out. You know, because I thought it was wrong to begin with. And then there was another settlement. There was a settlement from the government. I took that money, no problem. It was $100,000. It was called the Ricky Ray Relief Bill. Everybody was taking it. And I thought it didn't say that I couldn't sue. It didn't take away that right. It was just the government saying, sorry, we kind of didn't do our job.
Like, sorry.
Oops, sorry, you don't get free medical care the rest of your life, but we'll give you.
We messed up, but here's some money.
We'll give you $100,000.
Oh my God.
What the hell?
Like, maybe
I mean,
that
for people in the
fixes that
Midwest, that was a big thumbs up.
Oh
but you know,
my God.
other people, it wasn't. So, so I took that money, and that's partly paid for the ambulance. And then I threw $30,000 at a fellow person that was dealing with the hard lessons of the business of blood. She was writing a book called Dying in Vain. I was going to be in it. That wasn't my only motivation to get that book published. She was trying to collect money in the community to get this book published, and I knew that nobody was going to support her. So I said, "Here's $30,000."
Did it get
At least
published?
that money's going to. Yeah, it got published. It didn't really go very far, but it got published.
So it's out there, though.
So, but I felt really good about that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's $100,000, and then I keep saying no to these other settlements. I went to a settlement conference where it was very. See, people don't know this. This should be a movie about this stuff.
There should be.
There should be a movie telling all these. There's so many stories, so much suffering, so many children.
Well, and the thing is, like, nobody knows about it. There should be a movie, or at least, like, I don't know, a lecture or something.
And they pretend like it couldn't have been prevented. But you know what? If they would have taken care of hepatitis C before HIV came along, AIDS would have never been an issue. Now, don't get me into details with all that. You have to do your own research.
I did a little bit.
I'm not an expert. I just play one on TV. No, but I just get the general ideas, and I go with it. You know.
You have like firsthand experience.
I can get the information if you want it.
Yeah.
But it could have been prevented, and not only that, there was that 2-year period where definitely the product there was interoffice memos that said, hey, let's get rid of this. We're going to get this product out there. We got to get that product out there before the government tells us we can't sell it.
Oh my God.
And we're going to lose money. It costs us less than
still...
It's the bean counters that is what would cost us more. I mean, other organizations I'm sure have done it, but this was so twisted. I mean, let's say Ford does that. They got so many bad tires, they have to, or some sort of recall. Okay, there's going to be accidents. People may die, and they say, well, the lawsuits from that are going to cost us how much if we recall. Let's see, what's going to save us the most money? Okay, all right. So worst case scenario, a few people die in bad fiery car wrecks. All right, I would rather die in a fiery car wreck than die of AIDS, because when you die of AIDS, not only do you lose your pride, you lose your social worth in a lot of respects. Your sexual life definitely changes. You lose everything. Not only do you lose everything as far as your sense of a human being connected with other people, but you lose your ability to work, and you are. It's like a firing squad. You don't know when they're going to shoot, and you live with that the rest of your life. You know, they've got a lot of good products now, but people are still dying from AIDS.
Yeah.
But back then, a lot more people were dying of AIDS. And look, just you don't know when your immune system doesn't work, you could die 1,000 different ways. And I watched a lot of examples of that. Just, I mean, so not only you're not dying like that, you're just dying any 10 different gross ways you could die, or more, thousands maybe. But then the community says, to you, we hate you. We're going to burn your house down. I mean, that's the way it was back then. I mean, there's elements of that now. There's still people, the professionals, that won't talk about being HIV positive. So it was like a curse. It was not only they spent when they gave those products away and they said it costs us less in lawsuit. They were punishing people with a curse. That's evil. Nobody went to jail over this. There was this happened all over the world, by the way. This didn't just happen in America. And I think I have a terrible memory. But I think it was Japan, where the CEOs got on their hands and knees and apologized to the families. And I think in France that people actually went to jail over this stuff. Not in America. And so back to settlements. The hard lessons of the business of blood. I kept saying no, 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 no. And then I kept showing up at conventions and doing my routine. And I kind of got away with it. Nobody really gave me a hard time. Ken, we understand you've got an issue with companies. You're bitter. We understand.
Well, who wouldn't be bitter if you ruined my life?
That was the way they deal with it. Then there was guys that were really sick with AIDS, and they didn't want to be reminded. They wanted to pretend like everything was okay and show up at these events and have a good time. Let the pharmaceutical companies take them to dinner and treat them to lots of stuff. And here I was walking around reminding everybody, the only guy reminding everybody, because everybody was kind of done protesting. They were like, we're over, we're kind of getting past it. Ken, what are you doing? I said, well, no, we haven't made a point yet. I'm strongly suggesting that we say no to at least one company to make a point that we have power as consumers to pay respects to our dead. So I would show up at fundraisers, small events, and big conventions, doing the same routine. If I saw the logo of a particular company there being advertised as something positive, I would, okay, here it comes. I'm going from normal Ken to here's the other side of that logo, Ken. And it really didn't make me a popular person in my own community, because there was a lot of places that people just wanted to have a barbecue. They wanted to raise money for this local foundation, and they didn't need Ken reminding people of the past. But I felt compelled to do it, because I felt like, I show up at these events and you got these smiling reps that are saying, we're a wonderful company, aren't we great? Well, let me put my logo on your stuff. Let me put my logo on the bag that your child's going to carry home today. Let me put my logo on that little ball you're going to be bouncing home. And don't think about the fact that logo represents death and destruction. And that logo, one particular logo, goes all the way back to World War II, where we killed people in concentration camps. Wow. There's a history to that logo. And not only did it kill people years ago in other countries, it came here and did it. And that's okay somehow. Okay, all right. So I had a problem with that because of the people I watched die, because of surviving and feeling responsible. Like, if I'm going to survive this stuff, I got a responsibility to do something about it, to say something. And so I did for 10 years. And so one of the other settlements, now this is why I said there should be a Lifetime movie. I'll have to get to why I came to Santa Barbara. I don't know how much time we got. I didn't realize that I was going to be talking so much.
Oh, it's okay. This is important information. And honestly, I would love you back to continue more. Because
how much time we have?
I think we're at 9 minutes.
Okay, all right. So I better scoot things along. God, this is. I really appreciate the opportunity. I haven't talked about this stuff in a public forum in such a long time.
It's important.
So let me move it along. I'll skip over a lot of the advocacy I did. I did it for 10 years, and then I finally said I mentally couldn't handle that anymore, and I decided to focus on other things. And so I stepped away from the community. And I realized I wasn't getting the support that I thought I was going to get, and I was really probably getting too emotionally attached to the message.
Wow.
And that I needed to focus on some other things. So I focused on my children. And then there was this crazy bleeder, another guy, and this is another lesson in the hard lessons of the business of blood. He's survived like me. He's been a long-term survivor. He decided to raise money by riding across the country, a guy named Barry Hardy. I wanted to help promote him, and he was drawing attention because he was drawing attention to the people that died, and a lot of people weren't talking about that. So I wanted to promote him. I used my skills as a photographer and follow him and do video, and I came out to Santa Barbara. I ran into another buddy of mine who was also an advocate. His name was Corey Dubin. He was part of the Goleta community, and he had been an advocate for years, not quite as aggressive as me, and he really didn't like the fact that I challenged him on that. He was more midline. He was able to still deal with the pharmaceutical companies. These guys motivated me to want to come out here because they were talking about building a memorial. The memorial as a tool. Say a memorial could be a tool. You know, a lot of people say, well, this only happened at, or 10,000 that got HIV, and that 8,000 are dead. I'm one of the like 2,000 or 1,200 or whatever that's left. So there's only a few of us left. I didn't even take medication until 2 years ago because I just, or 3 years ago, because I was just determined to let what happened happen. I didn't want the pharmaceutical companies to make any more money on me. And then I was, just an angry guy sometimes about life in general. You know, at the same, it's funny because I came to this community to help Corey Dubin build a memorial, to draw attention to the idea of building a memorial. And he was having some serious health issues, so he didn't really invite me in the circle. So I thought, well, what can I do in the community while I'm waiting to get into to the circle of his life? And so I started doing volunteer work at the Maritime Museum, at Pacific Pride, at the Alano Club, and I ended up here at TVSB. I walked in just wanting to learn Final Cut, and they taught me all this other stuff. They pushed me into all kinds of stuff. I'll tell you what, they'll do that. It was great, though. And they have been very kind to me here and taught me a lot. And really, I wanted to create a message because when I first came here, I wanted to see how many people I can connect with and network with and draw attention to the idea of the hard lessons of the business of blood, being a platform for people to learn about their rights. There's so many things that people don't know about blood and their rights as a blood user, a consumer of blood. And that could be presented in a neutral way to people if we had the vision is a huge playground with a red theme, of course, because it represents blood, and it has a plaque that says, bring your children here to play because let them play for the children that can't play anymore, that are gone as a result of the hard lessons of the business of blood. It's good and sad. It has some sad elements, but it's honoring the children, especially the children I watch die. Then you got this pathway that goes to another part. And you're looking at a wall of names. And there's even a wall of anonymous names for the guys that are professionally, that don't want to be associated with AIDS. Just a wall of names to honor these people. Then if you keep going, there's an archway that says, never again. So if you keep going, you go through this pathway, and then there's a museum, an interactive museum that walks you through the decades, the good, the bad, and the hard lessons of the business of blood. Everything that blood's represented, everything that blood has done for America and the world. And this is a worldwide story. Right now in the UK, people are motivated. They're trying to get the government to apologize for what happened, to make up and to investigate what happened. They're late in the game. And there's actually a guy that would dress red like me because he saw what I did. I thought that was pretty funny. It's been 10 years since I've done
like
that.
Like an apprentice.
Yeah, his dad died.
Oh, wow.
And it's real. It was a real honor. But anyway, the museum would be an interactive museum, and it would be a place for all this research that these very intelligent people that motivated me. It'd be a place to set it down and have a web page where people that are faced with the option of using blood, they want to know what their rights are. They want to know what this business means, what it means to them. Because it is a business, and it costs money to test blood. The Red Cross has been caught not testing all their blood, more than once.
Testified before the Congressional Subcommittee.
Do you know if, in fact, the blood was shipped or not?
I do not have all the records with me to indicate which of the products were distributed versus maybe expired in-house, but we do have records that they were shipped. Whether they were actually transfused, we would have to go to the hospital and ask them that information.
In fact, these records show that recalled blood units from the Portland Blood Center were transfused, including units that had been incorrectly tested or had come from high-risk donors.
And if a person is
At the
eligible to
time,
donate
Dr.
his or her
Pitoum
blood,
insisted
that's
there was no danger.
his choice. No blood reached hospitals that we feel
And
uncomfortable.
what is the consequence of
No.
not testing blood? Well, you may get shut down, you may have the right to test taken away from you, but you're not going to jail. We did research that found blood banks where the CEO would get shut down for not doing the right thing and open up a new blood bank. So there's so much that needs to be put. I'm just a messenger, and I need help. I need people. I need a team of people and somebody with more money than God that's willing, that's willing to take on something like this. This could be a platform to teach the world about the business of blood so that people are paying attention and it's safer. That people know that blood shield laws exist and they should be changed. And that that blood is not a service, it is a product, and we are consumers, and we deserve to know what our rights are. We deserve to know that that I can store my own blood if I need blood tomorrow, that the insurance may or may not pay for it, but they should pay for it, or whatever you're up against when your blood is not as safe as people think it is. It's not the business that people think it is. So are you Bloodwise? That's always my question. That's my question now. I did my thing. I was a community activist, and now I do things like I show up at Oprah's estate, and I go talk to their very nice security, and I hand them a red envelope, and I invite Oprah to help me, not to give me money, but to give me a team, to give me advice of who to talk to build this memorial, to create a platform so the world can learn about the business of blood and not have kids die of AIDS or whatever blood disease is next. I also went to Jeff Bridges' ranch. I have to apologize to his wife because they let me on the ranch. I just buzzed the thing and I said, "This is Ken Baxter. I have a thank you card." And I was going to give them a note, inviting them, asking them for ideas to how to make this memorial, to support this memorial. She invited me up. And I didn't have a car then. I walked all the way up her driveway. It's like 2 miles. And I knocked on her door. She opened the door, and she was shocked that this guy without a car was standing at her door. She gave me a ride back down to the gate. But I think it scared her. And they weren't exactly open to the idea of talking to Ken about a memorial to people with more money than God, or at least ideas on how to support the idea of a national memorial, that people could be educated. It could be a great tool to learn about the hard lessons of the business of blood.
Yeah, I think that's like deeply important, but like it's.
That's why I say, you're Bloodwise, and I'll keep. I'm going to give it a couple more years. I just want to be able to tell them. I got three grandsons with hemophilia that they don't use blood products, but I'm their grandfather, and I have a history with the hard lessons of the business of blood, and I want to be able to look back and say I did, and to the people that died, I want to be able to look back and say that I did everything that I could possibly do. I'm not that smart, I'm not that gifted, but I am passionate about the people I watch die.
Thank you for
Is
all
that it?
I believe so, but I promise you we'll get you back here.
Okay.
Because we're gonna.
Are we out of time?
We're like, I believe from what it looks like 17 seconds.
17 seconds?
I was like,
All right,
yeah.
well, are you Bloodwise? That's what I want to know.
I'm Bloodwise
And if you
now.
have any ideas, if you know who can create a web page and an architect, we need property, we need a museum, a whole idea, it just needs a team. I'm not the one to do it, I'm just a messenger. It's a good idea, and people could learn from it. The hard lessons of the business of